start recording. Hello, and thanks everybody for attending today. My name is Paul Sell, Associate Director here at Youth Development Oregon, and you are attending the Safe Communities for Youth Grant Application Evaluator Training. Before we get started, just want to again extend my gratitude and appreciation to everybody who has volunteered to participate in this training. We are recording, and so we will get this uploaded onto the Evaluator information page. That includes a few other resources as well for you as we begin starting reviews. Next slide, please. Sorry, Melissa, you were probably doing something else and I asked for that. That was my bad. Um, all right, so as you might be able to tell, we have actually a much smaller group than we normally do. This is a relatively small RFA for us. We have, I believe, mid 20s, about 20 or 25 applications that will need to be evaluated this go around. And so we will be assigning those randomly to the group that is attending. And we have a couple other folks that will be added to the list as well. So today we're going to just go through some quick welcome and housekeeping, as well as just the general council division overview. Know many of you already know that, as many of you have been a reviewer or are on our council. So appreciate all of our council members helping with this evaluation. And then I'm going to turn it over to Abraham Magana, who will go over the Safe Communities for Youth overview. And you'll notice the acronym there, SCFY. So you'll note that throughout. Then we're going to go through some evaluation guidelines and general concepts with Bethany, our single point of contact, and Jared. And then circle back to Abraham and Jared for some evaluation items and the scoring and comment requirements. And then for those that know how to use our SCFY, that'll be when we will go ahead and if you want to stick around for the quick SCFY information, you can. If not, you can also sign off when we get into that part, which I think I assign myself to that one. But Abe's probably going to help me on that one as well. All right, so next slide, please. So because this is such a small group, a little bit different in the information session, please feel free to raise your hand should you have any questions. But we do ask that you just stay on mute because we are recording throughout, and then just take yourself off mute when you're speaking. You can also put it in chat. I will, in just a minute, I'll pull up the chat function as well, and we'll just work to address those questions throughout. As we go through the different presentations, we'll hit pause a couple times as well, just to address any questions you might have. So with that, I've already introduced myself. So next slide, please. I'm going to quickly introduce Brian Detman. I don't believe he's on the call. Is he, Melissa? Okay. For those of you who know him, he's our director for the Youth Development Oregon. He was unable to make today's training, but does extend his appreciation to everybody. And then with that, I'll turn it over to Abraham. Abe, if you don't mind, also just adding the context of how you've been a part of this RFA, just to give context of why
Oh, yes.
you're doing
So
this.
Abraham Magana, I'm a grant manager and operations analyst, and just give a little bit of context. This grant specifically has kind of evolved over time. In the past, it was called, uh, the Youth and Gangs Grant was the original iteration, and it's had some name changes, and there's been kind of a revamp of this grant. And we'll go over it here as you go through the questions in regards to focusing more on a intervention side of services. And like I said, again, we'll cover a little bit more as we go through the grant application process here in a little bit. With that, I'll pass it to Jared.
Good morning, everyone. Jared Shaw, Grant Manager here at YDO. Yeah, my role has kind of been helping with finalizing the RFA template and just kind of pulling all the pieces together behind the scenes, getting the RFA ready. So I'll pass it over to Melissa.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to see everyone here. Melissa Gallardo with YDO and executive support for our team. And I'll pass it to Vicky if our other admin support, if you're ready to unmute.
Hi, I'm Vicki Johnson, and I am here on temporary assignment to help with the grants management team, and looking forward to working with you.
All right, thanks everybody for introductions. For those of you that may not have heard, both Tanisha Bishop as well as Joy, and why am I drawing a blank on her last name, are two of our other admins are both on leave currently, and so Vicky is stepping in for that. So if you have any questions or needs throughout the process, that's why we've been blind copying you to all the information around evaluators. Feel free to hit reply all, and that'll get to the folks that we need, including myself, Jared, Bethany, and Abe. All right, so next slide is for Bethany.
Hi, I'm Bethany Moreland. I am a senior contracting officer for the Department of Education. I'm working alongside YDD on this RFA and have worked alongside YDD on most of their RFAs, so you may have seen my name already or been in a presentation with me. But I am the single point of contact for this RFA. Next slide, please.
So just we like to start kind of just with some burning questions. Again, this will be sent to you or it'll be posted on the educate or the evaluator information page. But we will again be using our SM Apply site for both access to the applications as well as for your evaluations. We will have about approximately 3 weeks. So our hope is to have these assigned tomorrow, if not Friday morning. We have a full staff retreat tomorrow, so kind of depends on what my schedule looks like, whether or not I can get you assigned this afternoon, early tomorrow morning. We are estimating around 8-ish applications for folks to evaluate. And again, each application will have 3 randomly assigned evaluators. The evaluations, again, if you've done this in the past, you might have heard the word tabulation meetings. We are not using tabulation meetings this time, so these are going to be completed individually on your own. And should there be any questions that come back after you complete your reviews, Bethany, or your evaluations, excuse me, Bethany would be reaching out just for clarification on that side. So please do watch your email in terms of that so that we don't slow down the process too much. Let's see. As always, your scores and comments are made available to applicants as part of our last process. We have been sharing comments upon request from any of our applicants, so please just note that. They also are available for public record request as well. So just note that everything there is on public record. And then lastly, who do we reach out to with questions? Again, that's Bethany. She's our single point of contact. We also have tried to make it easy so you can hit reply all to any of your evaluator emails. It's not because we're trying to be secretive about who is evaluating. We're just trying to make it easy for you to be able to respond back to us without influencing that individual review. Next slide, please. So the next slide, again, our different names collectively, and we're YDO. The YDD is us as staff, and the YDC, which we have many YDC members on the call as well. So appreciate everybody that is taking part in that. And our mission and vision, again, we just include these in our slides, but Melissa, if you want to hit next slide, sorry. Mission and vision, this grant fits very well into our mission around disrupting youth crime and violence. And so we just wanted to kind of point that out as a note as you go into this evaluation. With that, I'm going to hit pause. I didn't see anybody look like they had questions, and I don't see anybody raising their hands. But I will bump it over to Abe to give a lot more detail about safe communities for youth.
So I'm going to go ahead and cover the goals of the grant. So one of the first goals is identifying youth for services. So basically identifying youth in the community that are at imminent risk of being a victim of violent physical harm or gun violence. And by imminent risk, it means that there's credible threats against this youth. The second goal there is violence interruption. They have interrupting or reducing violent retaliatory attacks against youth at imminent risk of violence. So if something's happened where there has been a violent attack, is having the ability to stop any sort of retaliatory attacks against perhaps another group of youth, right? Or groups of some from basically attacking or hurting someone violently, whether that be through gun violence or any other sort of physical violence. The other goal is reduce victimization, reduce the likelihood of youth being victims of violent acts causing bodily injury or death. And what you see at the bottom is the intensive and culturally appropriate services. Provide intensive, culturally appropriate services addressing youth safety, trauma, mental health, and well-being by service providers with knowledge and expertise in supporting youth affected by community violence. So it's the idea of wraparound services when an incident has happened and providing the services the youth may need and helping them transition out of any sort of violent cycle that they may have been or are trying to leave. But that's really more or less kind of the goals of the grant. Next slide, please. Scope of activities. We have identification and engagement services. Again, street level outreach with real violence interruption and crisis mediation. So identifying the youth, building a relationship with the youth, getting to know the youth, right? Knowing what's going on in those networks, who the youth hangs out with, they associate with people who are violent, or maybe in the past have done something regarding a violent incident of some sort. And then we have the other portion which is comprehensive support and transition services. Again, this is helping that youth leave those cycles of violence. It's trauma-informed health supports and care, substance use and recovery services, life coaching and long-term case management, and possibly crisis relocation. So a lot of this is around safety of the youth. Again, if there's a credible threat against the youth, we want to keep that youth safe, all right, and preventing any sort of harm from happening to that youth as that youth goes on and continues their journey and trying to leave the violence that they in the past, were in, right? They're trying to transition out of that type of life. And there's a note there where you can find more details specifically to what it means in what all these terms mean there in the RFA. Next slide, please. Any questions?
All right. Bethany, you're up.
All right. I'm just going to take a moment to talk about conflict of interest. If you participated in evaluations and then an RFA process before, you are likely aware of the conflict of interest process. The Oregon government ethics law identifies and defines two types of conflicts of interest, actual and potential. An actual conflict of interest is defined in ORS 244. 0.0201, and the potential is defined in 244.02013. What the state of Oregon is specifically talking about when they talk about conflict of interest is financial interest, whether positive or negative. So if you, one of your relatives or a business for yourself or a relative would be impacted positively or negatively, when somebody receives or does not receive a grant, that would be considered a conflict of interest from the state's eyes. And the question is really would versus could for potential versus actual. I want to point this out specifically that the state is really focused on the financial interest and not necessarily just your personal knowledge or necessarily connection with a potential applicant. So, for example, I know a lot of times, this seems to be a relatively small field. You might know of an organization. You may have been a previous grant manager for them. That is not inherently a conflict of interest from the state's eyes. Now, granted, if you're uncomfortable and feel like you cannot be unbiased in evaluating their application, then you should absolutely list that, and we will make sure that they're not assigned to you. But know that when you are reviewing the list of applicants, you're really considering the financial interest that your relative or a business that your relative is associated with may have. So I will be sending out the conflict of interest forms either today or hopefully tomorrow that will contain the list of their names on there. And you will need to identify whether or not you have an actual, potential, or no conflict of interest. For the actual and potential, you'll list the applicant names. And then you'll make sure to sign and date it, fill out the signature portion of the form. And once I have those completed, then we can go ahead and move forward with assigning you. If anything's missing from that form when I get it, I will follow back up with you. So please do pay attention to your emails so that we can move those along quickly. And if I have any questions, or if you have any questions about whether or not somebody is an actual or potential conflict of interest, feel free to email me. And likewise, if I have any questions for you, I'll follow up via email as well. Next slide, please. Okay, just a few things that you should be aware of when evaluating items that you are prohibited from doing while in the evaluation process. Please do not have any contact with potential applicants during any part of the evaluation process. If an applicant contacts you, please do contact me immediately. Don't respond to them and contact me. Do not conduct independent research, such as internet searching, including opening hyperlinks embedded in the application responses, unless they're required by the RFA and directed to include them. Now, note that this RFA in particular does allow applicants to reference credible sources to support their responses. But the important thing here is that those references support their response, they don't supplement their response. So I believe the RFA specifically mentions data, like they can cite data essentially. So if a link is included and you click on it, if it is just providing data that is providing the citation of their response, that's totally fine. But if it appears to supplement their answer, please close it. Do not take that into consideration. You can reach out to me as well if that comes up. Next slide, please. Additionally, as I briefly touched on, I'm aware that there's a good chance that you may know of an applicant, you know the work that they do. Please do try to set that information aside. You are going to be evaluating based on what is in the RFA and their responses to the questions, and not looking at it from the lens of the work that you know that they do, the quality of work that you're aware of, or anything like that. It's based solely off of how they've responded to the questions and the information they've provided as the RFA outlines. Please avoid, again, having contact not only with the applicants, but with other evaluators, stakeholders, media, any persons outside of the specified YDO staff that you've been directly instructed to contact. So, for example, if you have questions and you're emailing just a singular person, that email should just come to me. But in the context or the example that Paul gave, where you can reply all, I'm on that email as well. So we just want to keep everything above board so that I'm monitoring the conversations, making sure that everything is kept as within the parameters of the RFA and as neutral as possible. And just so you know, if you do forget and email one of the YDO staff, they will forward it to me, or they may respond and with me CC'd as well. So please don't be offended. They are following the instructions I have given them. So that is why you may have that experience. Don't just contact or discuss the evaluation with anyone during this phase of the process. Once the results are posted, it is public record at that point, although I would still recommend you don't discuss in general, but specifically during this period, it is confidential. Next slide, please. I think next slide is questions. If anybody has any questions on what I just discussed or anything else, please let me know. Otherwise, I'll pass it to Paul.
Sounds good. Thanks, Bethany. And just a note, so like as an example, you might, if you have an SM apply question, it'll probably be myself or Abe getting back to you, and that's why we do you can reply all, knowing that Bethany's monitoring what we say, and make sure it's accurate on that. I'd also note that because this is a small evaluation, some of the RFA stuff has changed. I know I was just realizing we did not put this in it. We are not using our normal regions in this. This is a small RFA, meaning we do not have enough money to award every single region across the state that we offer. And so this is sorted by top score. I forgot the name of that, but you get the point. It'll be ranked. There you go. That's the word I was thinking of. It'll be ranked based on the evaluator's average scores. All right. With that, I'll turn it. Let's see. I think it's going back to you, Abe. No, it's Jared. Jared gets this next portion.
It's me. All right, thanks, Paul. So I will be talking a little bit about just general concepts to keep in mind as you dive into your evaluations. So three main concepts that are really important. One is that each item or each question within the application is scored individually, and I'll dive into all of these as we get into the next few slides. Two is that each evaluation item is scored against the rubric only and not against responses from other applications. And three is that the rubric and rubric guidance documents are just that. They are guidelines. You can think of them as a compass, but not a GPS. You still have a really important role in applying the rubric and your subjectivity as you go through these applications and determining what you think is the most appropriate score. Next slide, please. All right, so that first point, each evaluation item within the application is scored individually, not the application as a whole. So this is really important. As you're going through the application, you'll see that there are evaluation items, and each evaluation item, not each, but I think the majority of evaluation items have several sub-bullets within that. When you are reviewing an evaluation item, you are only scoring that item. So you are pretending that that is the only item that is in the application, and you are just scoring their answer to that question. So if they include a piece of information in a different question that you think should be in the question that you are evaluating, you are not to consider that piece of information unless it is specifically answering the question that you are reviewing. Each of those evaluation items will then be scored independently, and the total of those scores will produce the final application score. Okay, next slide, please. Second, each evaluation item is scored against the rubric only and not against responses from other applications. And this is really important so we don't arrive with a set of totals that is a curve. We don't want that. We don't want you to say, oh, well, this question here is the best that I've seen, so I'm going to give that one a 10 and go from there. No, if you're reviewing an answer and you think, oh, this is only mostly complete, it's not really complete, it might just be a 6, and that might be all of the the questions that you respond to or that you answer. If they all are worse than that, you might end up with a whole bunch of questions that are within that range. So that is to say, please do not give the best answer that you see a 10 unless you actually think that it warrants a 10 based on the rubric. Okay, next slide, please. And the final one here is that the rubric and rubric guidance document that we've developed are exactly that. They are just guidance. So again, you can think of this as a compass. We'll go through some steps on how to kind of determine where you think an appropriate score is, but that you as the evaluator still have that role that is critically important in providing your knowledge, your expertise, and going through the responses and determining what you think is the appropriate response, so the appropriate score for those questions. All right. Next slide, please.
Thanks, Jared. And just I would note that this is pretty similar. The rubric is the same that you've seen if you've done the evaluations in the past as well, but we want to make sure that we have everybody on the same page around that. And as Jared was noting, yeah, when using those scores is really important. Jared's going to go into some more detail, and hopefully you see a lot of great applications. But when utilizing that rubric for each individual question is critical because it does help us break those ties and really narrow down those applications based on everyone's average scores. With that, I'll turn it over to Abe to talk a little bit about what people are being asked in this evaluation or in this application.
Yes, so I'll be going over kind of each evaluation item, just kind of reading through what the applicant has to answer. So the first one's around project operations. So the applicant must describe their capacity to implement the project, showing experience and effectiveness in serving the proposed youth population or populations. Describe how applicant is well positioned to carry out proposed activities for the youth in their community and or service area, and organizational and staff capacity to collect, manage, and report complex and sensitive data related to the project deliverables. Next slide. The second evaluation item focuses on the project youth population in the service area. Item 2.1, describe the youth population to be served through your proposed project, include demographics, age range, high and or extreme risk factors youth face, making them likely victims of violent crime. And some examples are assault, stabbing, or shooting. Include how youth will be identified for services and any other information to describe the population served. And you see there references the goals that we went over earlier. Item 2.2, identify where project services will take place, for example, in a neighborhood, zip code, school district, etc., and describe the community violence taking place in the proposed service area. Provide evidence of gun violence or other violent crime, victimization, and the impact community violence is having on youth, families, and the overall community. Just something to note, you may see some of these words are capitalized. If you go to the RFA and reference RFA, you'll find that those capitalized words have a definition associated with them. Also, just to let you know. The third evaluation item is project services and activities. Item 3.1, with attention to the violence reduction interruption strategies described in section 2.4, scope of activities. And again, that's the reference in the RFA. Describe the services and activities your project will provide. Identify any partners, if partnering and or subcontracting for any services. Item 3.2, explain how services and activities address the needs, challenges, and risk factors of the population served. And then 3.3, describe the model or framework your project services or activities are based on and the expected results or outcomes for the youth being served by the project. Next slide, please. This focuses on project equity and access. Item 4.1, describe the policies, practices, and training your organization has implemented to ensure safe, affirming, culturally responsive, and inclusive spaces for youth, families, and staff. Item 4.2, describe how leadership and direct service staff expertise, experience, and training are responsive to the needs of the youth population being served. And then item 4.3, what role do youth, families, and someone's pop-up. There we go. I'm sorry. What role do youth, families, and the community play in the design, decision-making, implementation, and evaluation of project services and impact? Any questions?
Thanks, Abe, for going through that. If you didn't notice in the chat behind the scenes, I was sharing out the copy of the PowerPoint so you can look at the more detail on that, as well as the Evaluator training page link. That's where we'll post some of these next items that Jared will be discussing in the next round of training. You also can, on that web page, you can navigate at the top toolbar to actually see the published RFA materials as well. All right. With that, keep looking for hand raised questions, but apparently we're doing such a good job. I see some thumbs up, so I do appreciate that. With that, I'll turn it over to Jared.
All right. So diving into the actual rubric, this is what the rubric looks like. And I think most of you have been evaluators for us before. If you were an evaluator in the 25-27 RFA process, this was the rubric that we used. So you can see here, scores range from 1 through 10, with 1 being the lowest and 10 being the highest. Next slide, please. So within that rubric, we have divided it into kind of 3 main categories that you can think about. So if you look under the where it says category column, we've got one section in green, 10 down through 7. That is considered complete. So when you're going through your responses, you're going through a question, evaluating it, starting off, is it complete or not? 10 through 7 there, that's complete. Then we've got 6 and 5, that's mostly complete. And then we've got 4 through 1, and that is incomplete. So kind of just a map to get you started on where you think an evaluation item might be scored. Is it complete or incomplete? And just kind of starting from there will give you a good roadmap. Next slide, please. Then within that, we have divided those into also 5 subcategories here. So 10 and 9, exemplary. 8 and 7 are very good. 6 and 5 are good. 4 and 3 are fair. And 2 and 1 are inadequate. So then when you get into figuring out, okay, this is complete or incomplete, then you'll really dive into the substance of the response and determine where you think those fall. Next slide, please. So just as we go through general guidance, please familiarize yourself with the Safe Communities for Grant purpose and goals and the applicant background information. So their executive summary and their organization description. Those are going to be in SurveyMonkey Apply when you go in to evaluate their application. And then always refer back to the RFA and their background information as often as necessary. Next slide, please. All right, so we're just going to go through kind of a general roadmap, and this is one method that you can take as you're reviewing these questions. So one, open the evaluation item, read the evaluation item, including all of the numbered and component parts. So you saw when Abraham read through those evaluation items, many of them have sub-bullets. You'll assess the level of completeness and determine whether you think it's complete, mostly complete, or incomplete. And then you'll assess the quality of the response based on those categories. So was it exemplary? Was it very good? Was it good, fair, or inadequate? And then once you're narrowed down there, you'll choose one of those two scores that you think is the most appropriate. Next slide, please. So we're going to dive into each of those steps a little bit. One, obviously read the evaluation item, including those numbered parts. Pretty self-explanatory. Next slide, please. And then again, starting off, probably the easiest way is to figure out, do you think it's complete or not? So does it fall within that green category, 10 through 7? That means that they have answered all of those sub-bullets and that you think it is it is complete. Mostly complete would be 5 and 6. So they've answered most of it, but maybe something is missing. And then if a significant amount of information is missing and you don't feel that they have addressed those bullets appropriately, then maybe we're looking down in the 4 through 1. Okay, next slide, please. So then you're going to assess the quality. So once you've narrowed it down, let's say you think, okay, it's mostly complete. They didn't really address, one of these bullets. So now maybe we're looking down in the 5 and 6 range. It's good. And then it's up to you to determine, whether you think it is a 5 or a 6, or if you're looking at, whether you think it's a very good. Is it a 7 or 8? That's really where it comes into your expertise as you read through here. Did they complete all the information? Did they provide specific examples? Was it thorough? Are they knowledgeable in the material? So that's where your subjectivity comes into play. Another thing to note here, we have this note that says, remember, based on the assessed quality of the response, the category can be moved downward, but not upward. What we mean by that is that if you determine, let's say you are looking at an evaluation item and it has 3 bullets, and they neglected to address one of those bullets. Because they neglected to address a bullet and it's missing, we're automatically looking down at the 6 and 5 range. It might be mostly complete, 6 and 5 or below. Then it's up to you to determine, is it below that? Just because they've answered, let's say, the other 3 bullets or other 2 bullets, and they're the most fantastic responses that you've ever read, that doesn't bump them up into a 7 or above just because they've done a stellar job answering those bullets. If there is something missing, we're automatically looking down there. Conversely, if they do respond to all of the bullets, but they do it with very minimal information, let's just say it's a yes/no response, they don't automatically move into a 10 or a 7 or above just because they have answered all of the responses. That's really where you assess, okay, what's the quality of the response? So you do have some room there to determine what you think is the most appropriate. All right, next slide, please. Looks like we have a question: complete is complete regardless of quality, incomplete is incomplete regardless of quality. Well, so that's, again, sort of what I just said there. If if they have completed all the questions, but they've done it in a pretty lackluster way, and they're not, answering it in a very strong way, they might still be down in that, good or fair range. So just because they've answered all the questions does not mean that they've done it in a satisfactory way. So again, there is some subjectivity there in determining whether you think that they have completed it.
And the other piece that I would add, sorry, Jared, I'll jump in, is
Yeah.
that you may reread it and looking more specifically. So they might have only used two bullets. So just be a word of caution. If they only used two bullets, does not mean that they didn't necessarily answer all three of the bullets in our question. Sometimes they are looped in together. So just kind of a note on that. But yes, if they have failed to answer one of the questions, then it would be considered incomplete at that piece or one of the bulleted questions.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point, Paul. Thanks. And then step 5. So once you've narrowed it down enough to feel that you can give them either exemplary, very good, good, fair, or inadequate, that's when you'll determine which of those two scores you think is most appropriate. So, if we're looking at, you think it could be a 9 or 10, is it a 9? Could they have potentially provided a few more statistics, examples, or do you think it's really exemplary as a 10? So that's, again, your subjectivity there. Next slide, please. Okay, and sort of what we've just talked about is that concept of completeness is not intended to be the sole criteria. So that's really just sort of a starting guide to get you to hone in on where you think that score might fall. But just because, an item they have technically completed all the responses, that doesn't mean that they've done it in a satisfactory way. So it really does come into play then, those paragraphs on the right side, whether they are responding to everything with thoroughness, with expertise, sorry, I can't read it, it's too small, specific expertise and understanding, and yeah, whether their knowledge is really showing through in those responses. Okay. Yeah, so just what we said there, that thoroughness, expertise, understanding, knowledge, and their ability are really what you're evaluating for the quality of the responses. Those concepts are also defined in the criteria definition section of the rubric guidance document, and so there's a link to that document that we will get to here in a little bit. Okay, yep, kind of gone over this as well, that both quality and completeness are critical in considering whether a response is complete or not. So again, if a response is not complete, the highest score it can receive is a 6. But just because it is complete does not automatically mean that it scores a 7 or above. So yeah, just what we've talked about here. If all items are addressed, but they're addressed with one-word responses, that doesn't mean that it is complete. And then again, if any item is missing and you determine that there is anything that is not complete, then the highest score that application can receive is a 6. All right, next slide, please. And that really is important to think about just for some context. I think historically we have seen that evaluators can be generous. And so we have seen a lot of 9s and 10s. And that's understandable. People want to, give applications the benefit of the doubt. And I think often we approach this from an academic lens where we think a 5 and a 6 is failing. And that is not true. If you look at the rubric, that 5 and 6 is mostly complete. So don't think that if you're giving somebody a 5 out of 10, that you're giving them a 50%. This rubric is really intended to create more spread of scores, so we don't end up with a whole bunch of ties up in the 9s and 10s. That doesn't really help us that much. We do want you to follow that rubric, and that will help create some more spread, so we have fewer ties. Okay, evaluator. Sorry, if we could go back to that one. Evaluator comments. So we are requiring that you leave a comment for every evaluation item that you score. So there will be a text box in SurveyMonkey Apply where you'll leave a comment for why you scored it the way you did. Those of you who have reviewed for us in the past, there is a bit of a change here. Last time for 9s and 10s, you were not required to leave a detailed comment. This time, we do want you to leave a detailed comment. We've determined that actually is really helpful for grantees to know why they got a 9 or a 10. So just because they scored very well, we do still want comments there explaining what you thought they did really well. We encourage you to leave those comments immediately after you determine the score, so it's still fresh in your mind. And please be as specific as possible. That really is helpful to evaluators. A comment guide has also been developed This was also part of our 25-27 RFA, and there's a link to that on our website. So there are some example comments there that you can use that fall within each of those categories. So you can either just copy and paste those, or you can use those as a starting point for your own comments. All right, and please also ensure that those comments align with the score category. So you'll see on that comment guide that there are specific comments that fall within that good score versus exemplary. Please don't pick and choose comments that don't fall within those categories. We do want to make sure that they are within those categories, and that if you're choosing a comment that doesn't seem to align with the category that you've scored it in, that might be an indicator that you should go back and take a look at how you've scored it. Next slide, please. Yep, so evaluator comments are highly valued by applicants, and they do help applicants improve in the future. Please keep in mind that these are public record, so make sure that any comment that you put, you would be comfortable with it appearing in a newspaper if there is a public records request. And we do have applicants that request these comments all the time. They do want to know what evaluators thought and how they can improve going forward. So please leave those comments to be as specific as possible and with constructive criticism if they can improve, and as professional as possible to help applicants going forward. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Jared. And when we were prepping for this, I knew that was going to be a long section, but thanks for running through that. Any questions on it? And I know that the comments can be a little troublesome. A couple things that I found doing some other different evaluations, it makes me feel better if I have to score somebody a 6, because then I type in the comment of it was incomplete, missed the third bullet. It just is one of those things that's really helpful. And being that we as an agency have committed to giving feedback to folks, anybody can sign up that has submit an application and we'll receive a virtual feedback conversation that we go over the comments. So it really is a critical help for it. And so even saying that you really thought that the 3 bullets were addressed very clearly and extensively is a great comment versus just good job on those 9s and 10s. And you can use them. A lot of times I'll have my kind of general comments. You can copy and paste similar to what we use with that evaluator, or excuse me, the comment guidelines on that. So with that, I don't see any questions in chat. Thanks, Jared, for catching the one in there. So I'm going to turn it over to Bethany to talk about what the conflict of interest form looks like. And Bethany, if you want me to do timeline, you let me know, but I'm assuming you'll cover that as well.
What was that last part?
The timeline, when we're going to send it out.
No, I'll pass that back to you. But
Oh,
we'll do these next two. These next two, I will likely misspeak otherwise. On the right-hand side, you see an example of what the conflict of interest signature page looks like. Please note where I have the 4, actually there's 6, the 6 green arrows. It's super common that people will sign the final page and miss those boxes, and I will have to follow back up and ask you to check those. So the very first one needs to be checked regardless. That's certifying that you read through the previous pages that talk about the expectation rules, etc. And then in the second section, you will check the box if you have an actual conflict of interest and put in the applicant name, and you can enter an explanation. You will likewise check the second box if you have a potential conflict and do the same thing. You can have both an actual and a potential conflict, in which case you would check both of those boxes and give me some more information there. If you do not have any conflicts, you will only check that third box that says no actual or potential conflicts. And then you'll sign the signature section. Please make sure to fill it out completely. So signature, print a name, your title, phone number, date. I won't be calling you, but that is just how the form is set up. So please do make sure that it's filled out completely. On the left-hand side, that's just information for you. The document will come through labeled as first name, last name, and then SCFY, which is Safe Communities for Youth, conflict of interest. Just switch out first name and last name for your first name, last name. And that makes it easier for me when I'm receiving a bunch to be able to organize it quickly and efficiently. Pages 1 through 3 are the statutes and expectations around the conflicts of interest. This 4 through 5 it might just be page 4. It just depends on I haven't inserted them yet, but the following pages will be the list of applicant names, and then the final page is the attestation and your signature. You'll return that to my email. You're going to receive it via email, so you can just reply directly. Or if you need my email address, it's there for you as well. Next slide, please. And again, if you have any questions at any point, feel free to reach out to me. If you are in the middle of evaluating and realize you do actually have a conflict, please do pause and then reach out to me and we can address that then with you. Again, if you accidentally forget to contact me and contact one of the lovely members of YDO, just know that they will either forward your email to me and then you'll get a response directly from me, or they will kindly respond to you and add me to the conversation so that we keep everything above board. Thank you. Okay, next slide. I think it's back to Paul.
Oh, so yeah, thank you. And you probably couldn't see me change the PDF, but we don't send a lost list of applicants. We send a list of applicants. So apologize for the typo if you see that in the PDF. I don't know how many times we've used that slide, Bethany. So a couple things to note about conflict of interest. Before you receive the applications, there are 2 processes that happen behind the scenes, what we call minimum qualifications or responsiveness determination, depending on where you read it. And that's where the single point of contact verifies that all of the stuff, all of the requirements, minimum qualifications to even apply, meaning such as you're an eligible organization, is met. And then we also, for this application or this RFA, have included what's called a scope review. And so they have been reviewed, the applications that you will receive have been reviewed by a team of folks that will have read through the application in general, not scoring it, but to make sure that it was fitting within the general scope of the context. So for example, if someone applied for something and they were planning to do an after-school program but didn't have any connection with violence, then that would have been an excluded application within that, or they were not an eligible application. So just a note on that. And the reason I say that now is we are in the final stages of doing the scope review. And once we have that completed, that's when the conflict of interest form will be sent out. So you have just the applications that are going to be evaluated in that process. And that should be finished today or tomorrow. And so that anticipate those conflict of interest forms coming either tomorrow or on Friday. And then just as a reminder, that conflict of interest form must be resubmitted before Bethany lets us actually release applications to you in SM Apply. So if you signed into that process, you would not be able to access that. Speaking of which, now we're going to jump into some SM Apply stuff on noting that. But I will say I went through this morning, and for anybody that has done evaluations for us in the past, I verified that you still had access based on the email that you submitted the interest form in. I also sent several, so Gunnar, for example, sorry, just to use you as an example, you were not in our SM Apply or SurveyMonkey Apply piece, so I sent you an invitation to be a reviewer. If you did not receive one of those and you're like, what is SM Apply? Please let me know. Just a reminder, though, anything that comes from SurveyMonkey Apply may end up in your junk mail. And that happens even for us who live in it consistently within that side. And I do have 2 folks. I will, before you sign off the call, or I'll be reaching out to you. Actually, I can probably just say it now. So Carol and Daniela, before you sign off, I just need to verify what email you want me to use because there has been some shifts within that side. So, and again, everything in SM Apply is based off of the email that you submitted in your interest form and this round, and that's why I want to verify on that side. Any questions of that in general? All right. Again, if you've been here and feel very comfortable with SM Apply, feel free. But I'll quickly just kind of remind folks on the next couple slides, and then we'll wrap up the training. So next slide, please, Melissa. So, just as a reminder, when you take the link to go into SM Apply or SurveyMonkey Apply, you may have choices to select in there. And so, if you have applied within the system, you'll have two choices. Many of you might just have what's called Reviewer. You'll select that piece. So you will select Reviewer, and that'll take you to the Reviewer stage in SM Apply. If you forgot your password, there is a magic button that says "Forgot your password." Correct, Abe? Actually, you know what? I'm going to turn this over to you because I'm realizing I do not know all these details. Why did I assign it myself? Do you mind just
No,
taking
not at
this?
all. I
All
can take
right,
it.
perfect. You know it a
Yeah,
lot better than I
there is a little button there that you can select in case you forgot your password where you literally click it and then I think it asks you for your email again and you probably get an email code and you have to re-register. There's a process for that. If you have any trouble at all, like I said, you can go ahead and reach out to Bethany and then we'll get it sorted out. Next slide. Okay, so once you log in, you can see here, this is from our previous process there on the pictures, but you'll see a list where it says, instead of saying 25, 27 ROG RFA evaluations, it'll say 25, 27 SCFY or CVS, CFY RFA evaluations. And it'll show you the number that you have assigned. And this first kind of screen where it says review dashboard will also tell you how out of how many you've been assigned. Click the start button, and then what you'll see is a list of ID numbers, right? And there's a little circle. If you look there with dash, kind of like a dash circle there, and you click start, that's where you begin your actual review of an assignment. But that circle changes. So let's say, and I'll show you here in a little bit, you go, you start a review, and you just hit save in the review because you didn't have time yet to go do something else, right? You get out, you come back in, that little circle that's clear right now will be colored halfway through. It'll be half green, half white, basically, that little circle. Once you've completed a full review, right, you'll get a little check mark next to the ID. Like I said, you'll see all your assigned grant applications will have the ID number and you'll see a number, but you'll see it on this one. Something else also, I don't think here you'll have a limit, but you see there at the bottom where it says 10 per page. You may want to click that in case you have more than 10, so you can see more than the 10 assigned ones. Say you get assigned, I don't know, 12, right? I don't think you're going to get that many, but just in case, you click on that drop down and you can see more of the applications. Because sometimes some of our evaluators think they're done. I'm like, no, you still got two left. What? I don't see them. But just to kind of be a heads up. Next slide. All right, it seems like there's a lot going on here. But put simply, on the left is going to be the grant application. On the right is where you'll be doing your actual evaluation. So you got some split screen, right? So I think the easiest way to think about it is if you have two documents, the left is the actual paper document of the application. On the right is the document or the form that you use to evaluate and score, right? On the right, you'll have like an initial kind of a screen on the right telling you that you've already attested to having seen this training or participated in this training, right? You check the box off and that you've also read the executive summary, right? So you check, that's kind of the initial questions you'll be asked on the form on the right. On the left, there's a couple of red boxes as well. You say, tells you what the application requirements are and the executive summary. So you have the titles on the left, on the very top, they'll be underlined, right? For each portion that you're reviewing. So you're kind of doing a match left to the right, left to the right. You can scroll up and down. You see the little rectangle in the middle there. That's how you kind of go, and they're independent. You can scroll up and down on the left, or you can scroll up and down on the right on either form, right? And also you can change the width. So there's a little bar there with what it's like, but 6 dots in there, like a shape of a square in the middle there. You can move that to the left and also move that to the right. So that'll give you, and then on top also on the left, right now there's a box that says application with this red square. You'll want to click on that initially because when you go log into here, you'll probably see the summary and it'll show you the ID and maybe an email, maybe. But click on the application, then that's when you actually get to see the grant application. All right, thank you, Paul. Next slide. So for example, on the left, they scroll down already a little bit. You can see your evaluation item 1, project implementation and capacity. And on the right, they scroll down a little bit too, right? And so they're matching it. So here's a response in kind of the gray background, right? When you scroll down, you see the question and on the bottom, right, the response. And on the right, again, the matching place where you'll do the evaluation where there's a score on the drop down and then a section to write your notes or comments as well. Next slide. Oh, that was
Or
quick.
copy paste, Abe. I will add, you can copy paste in the notes.
Yes, yes.
Sure.
So if you want to have if you have another Word document somewhere else, you can also copy and paste documents into or your Word text into those forms on the right.
All right. Any questions about SMApply? It's a pretty exciting program. We've been using it quite a while. Have had really positive responses for folks doing it on that way. So the next slide is just a list of evaluator resources and that link I shared earlier in the chat, because you probably won't have access to this chat once we sign off, but it is in that PDF that will take you directly to the evaluator resources page on our website that is all public information. And then that next slide is just some final thoughts. Just the rubric is your friend. Use it, feel comfortable with it, and utilize those resources as best you can. And once again, there's Bethany's email for you. She loves emails. I email her pretty regularly in terms of that. And just look forward to a great process. If anytime you have any questions and whatnot, let me know. Because this is a smaller evaluator pool, which is very nice. I want to put out having a smaller evaluator pool. I will try, or Jared will try to bump you some emails if we make any adjustments within SMApply within that, just because we're dealing with a whole lot less behind the scenes on that side. So we'll try to just bump you a quick email along the way. With that, I think the last slide is just simply a thank you. And again, we appreciate all of your information or your work with this, as well as any feedback you have throughout the process. Happy to connect with you. Obviously, once you're done with evaluations, happy to chat with you. All right. Awesome. Well, Melissa, I think we can go ahead and stop the recording. And like I said, we'll be available if anybody needs anything, and then we'll be sending out some emails once we get them loaded in SMApply. But first, watch for that conflict of interest form, and that'll come directly from Bethany on that side. Right, Bethany? Okay. Just want to make sure I said that correct, because that's what I thought we talked about this morning. All righty.